Hey folks, welcome into the News 12 Now desk. Thanks for joining us here on this Friday, May the 19th. That's right, we made it to the end of the week. It has been a pretty good week, weather-wise, not so much the last couple of days, but overall, pretty solid week here. Looking outside right now, a little cloudy. We did have some rain earlier. That seems to have passed, though. Let's take a look at this graphic that Anthony left for us so kindly. Oops, wrong one. There we go. Oh man, I'm botching this. There we go. Okay, taking a look here. 77 today, should be pretty nice. So if you've got any of those outdoor events going on tonight, I know they got Food Truck Friday out in Grovetown happening tonight, so should be good. We're taking a look at some of our top headlines. Before we do, though, I want to show you real quick how to subscribe to the new YouTube channel that we've got here. Just go here, search WRDW News 12 on YouTube. Oops, not 23, 12. There we go. And yeah, we're right here, so you can subscribe. We are live right now. Once that ad goes away, you'll see that we are live. But yeah, so if you just want to subscribe to our new YouTube channel, we do a ton of stuff over there. These live streams that we do from the News 12 Now desk, any live press conferences, breaking news, anything like that, that goes up there. And then all of our videos go up there too. So all of our I-Team investigations, all of our news stories, first alert forecasts, those all end up on our YouTube channel at some point. So if you subscribe to that, you don't have time to watch a full 30-minute newscast. You can just catch a couple clips up there. So it is a good little tool to have. But all right, let's get right into our top headlines now. We're starting off with our I-Team investigating if problematic teachers can take advantage of the education system because there's no system to stop them. The arrest of Scott Hooker caught our attention last year. Despite the former Evans teacher having a documented history of problems with students, including sexual harassment, he was able to move on to a nearby county and be hired. The I-Team's Will Rio exposes how some troubled teachers can easily slip through any oversight cracks and what can be done to stop it.
Yeah, more than a year ago, the I-Team broke the story about Scott Hooker and his history with the Columbia County school system. Scott Hooker is charged with improper sexual contact, sexual battery, and simple battery. This is how just one teacher slipped through the cracks of what seems like a broken system in the state of Georgia.
This is where a pattern of alleged inappropriate behavior started with the special education teacher. Accusations date back to 2015 at Evans High School in Columbia County, but 8 years later.
It's been difficult. It's been long waiting for all of this to kind of get settled and seeing where it's all going.
The I-Team began looking into the allegations. We requested Hooker's personnel file more than a year ago. It details when and where Hooker slipped through the cracks in the Columbia County School District. In 2015, a letter from the Evans High principal to the superintendent says a student is said to have called Hooker daddy. Hooker received a written note of concern and was strongly advised to refrain from unprofessional behavior. 2 years later, in 2017, is when Madison Cooksey's alleged sexual assault happens.
1 minute I was in class, the next minute I'm in the office surrounded by police officers and my mom. And it's just a really surreal feeling knowing that 1 minute you're supposed to be in this safe environment teaching or learning from your teachers, and the next minute your whole life just kind of changes.
The Evans High principal sent a letter to Hooker after the school received a complaint from Cooksey. She accused him of side-hugging her, moving his hand down her back and touching the lower back and butt area. Hooker admitted to the school about giving the student a side hug or patting the student's back while sitting down in his chair. The principal recommended a formal letter of reprimand be placed in Hooker's personnel file, and other disciplinary action may be taken by the superintendent, Sandra Caraway. The letter states that if an incident or allegation was deemed unprofessional or if the code of ethics was violated, Hooker may be fired. 8 days later, then Superintendent Sandra Caraway sent her response to Hooker. She called his interactions with female students worrisome and said he could not be alone with or have physical contact with a female student beyond his duties. 2 months later, deputies were called to Evans High School again. Cooksey told deputies that Hooker would often cross paths with her and stand next to her while staring at her. Cooksey later transferred while Hooker continued to teach at Evans High School.
It's very, very mind-blowing that all of these things, even before my situation had happened, and it was just kind of, oh, you shouldn't do that, let's not do that anymore, that's not appropriate, instead of actions being taken in place to prevent things like this from happening again.
Hooker would send in his resignation letter at the end of the year, having accepted an administrator role at the Georgia School for Innovation and the Classics in Richmond County, where he taught for a little over a year before going to Burke County High School, where he would later be arrested.
Multiple different schools and do the same thing. I just can't even put into words how it makes me feel knowing that that was able to happen, and who knows how many other than me and the other girl who was involved who could have been a victim of his. It's ridiculous.
So the I-Team started asking questions. What exactly are the guidelines for school districts if something like this happens?
The I-Team found the Georgia Professional Standards Commission oversees any individual with a teaching certification in the state. It creates and follows a code of ethics for educators to follow while they have a certification to teach. Standard 2 talks about conduct with students. Educators should maintain a professional relationship with all students inside and outside the classroom. Unethical conduct includes engaging in or permitting harassment or misconduct towards a student, soliciting or encouraging inappropriate written, verbal, electronic, or physical relationships with a student. Standard 9 handles professional conduct and says unethical conduct includes actions or behaviors or conduct that is detrimental to the health, welfare, discipline, or morals of students. Now, educators are required to report a breach of one or more of the standards in the Code of Ethics for educators no later than 90 days from the date the educator became aware of an alleged incident. An investigator with the commission says the only case they had on Hooker was from April of 2022 in Burke County, meaning it would seem no one from Columbia County reported Hooker's actions in 2017.
What do you think needs to change?
I'm not really sure where it ticks down in the system of what exactly went wrong. All I know is that wherever it did go wrong, it doesn't need to go wrong again.
According to a 2010 report from the U.S. Government Accountability Office, the lack of oversight allows sexually abusive teachers to quietly move from school to school. On average, one offender passes through 3 different school districts before being stopped and can abuse as many as 73 children in their lifetime.
It's honestly pretty devastating to go through all of this and feel the way that I'm feeling without any backup other than, the people who are on my side and support me in that way. Columbia County hasn't really done their part, nor are they wanting to do their part, and it's just really tough for people in my situation going through that and wanting to come forward and wanting justice for the right things and nobody else wanting justice for you.
Cooksey and her lawyer, Clay Buchalter, are filing this lawsuit against the Columbia County School District, Scott Hooker, and former Superintendent Sandra Caraway.
I just think in this entire situation, it was a complete failure on the Columbia County school system part.
They're claiming instead of concerning themselves with protecting children, the entire administration did their best to sweep these matters under the rug.
They have been very hesitant to accept that they were wrong and acted wrongly in this whole situation.
We reached out to the Columbia County Board of Education for comment, but we have not heard back. Georgia law allows the district 30 days to respond to the lawsuit.
I'm not going to let it slide, and I'm not going to back down until something is done about it. Something needs to be done. Things need to change. Rules, regulations, mandatory reporting, everything.
Despite her experiences, Cooksey wants to return to the classroom as a teacher.
What does it mean to go through all of this and still want to be a teacher?
After going through this, it pushes me more to want to be one of the good teachers in this world and protect the young children of this world more than anything. So I think there's a little bit more of a passion there now.
Scott Hooker is expected to be in court for his trial on August 21st. In regards to Madison's case, the I-Team will be there and will be sure to keep you updated on this entire case.
And I know that was a lot there. There is some background information, of course, over the past couple of years leading up to this. Will's been digging into this story for a few months now, and so he and I are going to sit up here at the News 12 Now desk a little bit later on this morning and just break down everything on this investigation, kind of give all that background information, that context, take sort of a deeper dive into it. So that's coming up a little bit later today, probably about 10:30, 11 o'clock, somewhere in there, but we'll be sure to keep you guys posted with that. The community is mourning the loss of a 16-year-old basketball player at Midland Valley High taken unexpectedly. Tayron Kirkland died Wednesday afternoon around 4 o'clock in a car crash on Jefferson Davis Highway. We've heard from coaches and friends on how he'll be missed. Our Taylor Martin has that story.
He was loved by many, and multiple posts on Facebook show there's a huge outpouring of love for Tayron Kirkland. The crash happened Wednesday afternoon, only a few minutes away from Midland Valley High School. In a Facebook post, family says Tayron was full of life and that life will forever be different for them. Friends go on to explain how hurt they are by the loss of someone so close. His former Midland Valley JV basketball coach told us, "I can remember his freshman year, first seeing him playing basketball in PE class and asking him to come try out for our organization. I just thank God for seeing fit for me to be a part of Tayron's journey. He will forever be in our hearts, and he will forever be a Mustang." Family on social media are just asking for prayers at this time as they mourn a great loss.
Sad situation there. Thank you for that, Taylor. After a deadly shootout between members of two motorcycle clubs over the weekend, a 12th suspect has now been arrested. Deputies arrested Deja Dotson yesterday after he was released from the hospital where he's been since the shooting on Sandbar Ferry Road. Deputies arrested 10 people after the shooting that killed 2 and injured several others. All 12 suspects, including Dotson, are now facing 2 counts of murder and 1 count of aggravated assault. And in light of this mass shooting in our backyard, plus the recent Midtown Atlanta shooting, Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock is joining other lawmakers to ask Congress to revisit new gun violence laws.
We are living in a nation that is literally besieged by gun violence, with virtually a mass shooting this year every single day. And while we say that is a reality this year, the truth is when you think about how gun violence shows up in many of our communities across our country, there's a sense in which there's been a mass shooting in America, although it may be in disparate locations, every single day for years.
Data from the Gun Violence Archive shows there have been 227 mass shootings alone this year, and yesterday marked the 138th day of the year. They consider it a mass shooting if 4 people are shot, not including the gunman. Atlanta police released body camera footage of their response to an active shooter at a medical building earlier this month. Police say on May 3rd, Dion Patterson shot 5 women in a medical center waiting room, killing 1 and injuring 4 others. The body camera video shows officers in tactical gear going up the stairs to where the shooting took place. That shooting led to an hours-long manhunt that locked down portions of Metro Atlanta before Patterson was caught in Cobb County. The 12th suspect involved in the deadly shootout between 2 biker clubs is out of the hospital and in jail. Deja Dotson, 33-year-old, and 11 others facing 2 murder charges and an aggravated assault charge. And now, after months of planning, yesterday the city had their first active shooter training for Augusta. It was a busy day, almost 20 local and state agencies involved in that process. Our Nick Veland spoke to agents at the training who say events like these are critical for the community.
Multiple agencies came together to put to test training for an active shooter situation. With incidents as early as this past weekend, local officials know that these trainings are crucial. Shots rang out at Laney's homecoming, and you can hear the fear that followed. Then, just this past weekend at Sandbar Ferry Road, the sheriff called it a wake-up call.
Over 150 shell casings were recovered at the scene.
The way we look at it, gun violence is a major public health problem in the U.S. It's a complex problem.
It's why Dr. Alejandra Baez has been working for 3 years to create better response plans when active shooters strike.
Sadly, we have to prepare for the worst. And the idea is hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Which is the training you see happening today. More than 15 agencies coordinating their response.
And this is an opportunity for us to train together, to work together, and to try to start the process of utilizing the NFPA 3000.
NFPA 3000 is a national response already used statewide in a few states, but not Georgia. Augusta is the first in the state calling it #StrongAugusta, making this a community effort.
The idea is that the entire community is involved, that everyone, not just in Augusta-Richmond County, right, in the adjoining neighborhoods as well, they all are practicing for this horrible eventuality as well.
Because a quick response can be the difference in lives saved. With this being the first training with this new response method, agencies are now debriefing and figuring out what went right and what went wrong. In Augusta, Nick Veland on your side.
And in June, the leaders who organized this drill will share what they learned at a national conference in Las Vegas. There's also one coming up in D.C. They're hoping to encourage other states and counties to start this program. And AU is the first college in the university system of Georgia to test this program out. Massachusetts uses it statewide, but will be the first college or first place in Georgia to try it out. Nick and I talked pretty extensively about this here at the News 12 Now desk yesterday. You can find that up on our YouTube channel. A man is behind bars accused of using a stun gun device on a woman, then sexually assaulting her in a car outside of his mom's house. Columbia County deputies say the victim met Dontavius Vinston last week, and both of them agreed to go out on a date. After their evening out, the victim offered to take Vinston home. The two ended up talking outside of Vinston's mom's house for hours, and the victim said when she tried to tell Vinston she had to leave, he wouldn't let her. That's when he forced her into the back seat and tried to sexually assault her. She was eventually able to get out, and Vinston is now facing charges of aggravated sodomy, aggravated assault, and false imprisonment. Are you in the market for a new car? Well, in North Augusta, the Kia Stokes Hodges dealership had its grand opening yesterday, and this is the first Kia 2.0 gallery in the country. We stopped by the gallery, and they are still hiring.
So currently we have 85 active employees, and it will by the time it's all said and done, we'll probably have 125-ish. We are hiring, yes, hiring for all positions.
The dealership is over there on Jefferson Davis Highway. If you're a big traveler, getting through TSA checkpoints may get a little bit easier. TSA announced if you live in Georgia, you can now add your driver's license to your Apple Wallet for airport verification. The TSA says this will help get through TSA checkpoints a lot faster. Keep in mind, this is not meant to replace your physical ID, and you should still keep that on hand when traveling. This is only available in a handful of states, and South Carolina right now, not one of them. A big announcement yesterday from Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, millions of dollars coming to Richmond County, more than $5 million on the way for several projects, including improvements to May Park and Boykin Road Park. The Boys and Girls Club of Augusta is getting more than $2 million for renovations, and Emmanuel County is getting more than $6 million for 3 projects, including a new Olympic-sized swimming pool and the at the Swainsboro Emmanuel County Recreation Department. While Georgia Governor Brian Kemp will be boycotting this year's Georgia Republican Convention, Donald Trump is not. The Georgia Republican Party announced the former president will headline the 2023 convention happening on June 9th. It's at the Columbus Convention and Trade Center here in Columbus, Georgia. And it's the first time Trump has spoken in Georgia since his re-election announcement. Trump faces several legal issues in the state and elsewhere. A teacher who has never given up on a student is retiring. Grace Atkins has been teaching for more than 7 decades in Southwest Georgia. Harry Truman was the president when she started, and with a career spanning 75 years, Atkins says she's blessed to know she's making a difference, or she has made a difference, in education.
My motto is every child a winner. And they don't mind getting help, you know. I never say a child can't learn. I found out how they learn. I don't give up.
Throughout her career, Atkins has taught thousands of students at all grade levels, including our very own Laura Warren. So congrats to Miss Grace on a wonderful career. In Georgia, twin brothers are graduating high school with high honors. They are the valedictorian and salutatorian at Randolph Clay High School in Cuthbert. Alicia Lewis has their story.
Making history and education for the Rainey brothers have always been the motive. The two tell me they came into their senior year with the mindset of exceeding beyond any limitations.
Last year, we participated in graduation last year as honor student, and that when it really came to fruition that we could be this, so we started thinking of the possibilities, like what if.
To be selected as valedictorian and salutatorian, you must maintain an AB on honor roll and a 3.5 GPA after the first semester. The dynamic duo tells me it doesn't stop here. They are off to Savannah State this fall.
We just want to motivate everybody else coming up, the young kids and every other generation to stay working hard, continue to work hard, be positive, and don't let nobody tell you can't do nothing you don't want to.
Their mom says she couldn't be prouder of her boys.
You know, boys usually tend to kind of stray away and be hard and difficult, but I didn't get that from them. They were, you know, if I say do, they did. If they had issues or doubts and I pushed them, they did. So surprised, but not surprised.
The Rainey boys tell me they will use this spotlight to be a positive role model for their younger peers.
Congratulations to those boys. I'm sure the best is still yet to come for them. Good luck at Savannah State next year. I wonder if there's any trash talk between the two, because Michael is the valedictorian and Markel is the salutatorian. So I wonder if there's any little bit of banter there, having that 1 and 2. Okay, let's jump across the river here to South Carolina. A program that helps South Carolina seniors access fresh produce while also supporting local farmers will soon be back. And this year, the benefit to seniors will be doubled. State House reporter Mary Green has the details.
We know that the senior population in South Carolina is growing. We know that senior citizens many times are on fixed incomes. They have expenses are going up across the board, whether it's housing or medical care.
The South Carolina Department of Social Services says its Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program is one of its most popular. It's federally funded and since last year available in all 46 counties.
This program really has two purposes. The first is getting healthy fruits and vegetables onto the dinner plates and the tables of South Carolina's senior citizens. And with that, we're able to also help farmers and locally grown produce.
Through the program, qualifying seniors receive $50 in 5 $10 vouchers that they can spend on fresh produce at approved roadside stands and farmers markets. That's double the amount available last year.
That's why they're in separate increments so that senior citizens don't feel like they have to use all $50 at one time.
These vouchers are valid throughout the summer. South Carolina residents who are at least 60 years old qualify if their income is at or below these amounts.
We encourage senior citizens to redeem those vouchers if you're approved and you receive them, because that's how the state is judged. And if we want to continue to offer a higher benefit amount for participating senior citizens, they need to make sure that they are redeeming those vouchers.
Seniors have to bring a photo ID with them to apply in person. If they're approved, they can receive those vouchers on the same day. Reporting from the State House, I'm Mary Green.
All right, thanks for that, Mary. Let's continue on in the South Carolina State House here. After more than 23 hours of debating, a bill to drastically slash abortion access in South Carolina has cleared the House. The House passed a 6-week abortion ban this week in a vote largely along party lines. So the bill still needs approval from the state Senate because there were a couple changes made by the House. So the Senate has to approve those, and then of course the governor has to approve it. The Senate could make changes and send it right back to the House. In the past, Governor McMaster has said he plans on signing the bill into law, and any abortion bill that goes into law is expected to be legally challenged. As of now, abortion is legal before 20 weeks in South Carolina. As you see here on the screen, it's one of the least restrictive abortion laws in the Southeast. $3 million is going towards preserving and revitalizing HBCUs in South Carolina, including South Carolina State University in Orangeburg. Molly McBride explains how the funds together to support the 3 HBCUs across the state.
South Carolina State University, Allen University, and Benedict College are the three colleges set to receive $3 million here in the Palmetto State. The National Park Service awarded $9.7 million for a total of 14 projects across 10 states as a part of the Historically Black Colleges and Universities Grant Program. The Palmetto State received 30% of the total funding and was the only state to receive funding for multiple projects. Those projects include the Morgan Hall Preservation Extension Project and the rehabilitation of the Antisdale Chapel at Benedict College, the Coppin Hall Preservation Project at Allen University, and the Wilkinson Hall Pathway full rehabilitation at South Carolina State University. Representative Clyburn says he's pleased with the funding and released a statement that reads, in part, "I applaud the National Park Service for supporting these preservation and rehabilitation projects. This continued support will help future generations remember the legacy of historic Black colleges and universities." Clyburn has championed this program for years, successfully passing legislation to authorize it in 2003 and 2019.
Okay, thanks for that. Moving up in here to North Carolina now, a story we first brought you here yesterday at the News 12 Now Desk. We gave you a live look of that fire up in Charlotte on a construction zone. 2 people are still missing. 15 others had to be rescued after that massive fire broke out at a South Charlotte construction site yesterday morning. Nicole Scanga reports the heroic rescue of one man trapped on a crane surrounded by billowing smoke.
A massive fire ripped through this apartment construction site in the upscale shopping and residential South Park Mall neighborhood. Huge flames and black smoke could be seen billowing hundreds of feet in the air from miles away. Hot ash and debris spreading onto the street, threatening nearby businesses and rooftops. This cell phone video shows part of one building collapsing, engulfed in fire.
It collapsed.
Truck driver Glenn Freeman was making a delivery nearby.
They said the building's on fire. They were hollering the building's on fire. Smoke was rolling right out the place where they were going to unload my windows at.
Oh my gosh.
The blaze started around 9 o'clock this morning, just as people were filing into their office buildings nearby.
I was on the phone in a meeting, started seeing small smoke and then big smoke and then flames, and said, all right, it's time to get out of here.
While drama unfolded high above the site, a crane operator was left stranded for more than an hour, surrounded by heavy smoke.
And we still have a crane operator in the crane. He's stuck on the platform trying to get out.
The fire chief explained how responders kept the crane from melting under the extreme heat.
That we had to put hose lines in place to protect the crane until we could actually make the rescue itself. It was a very fast-moving fire, high heat conditions, well over 2,000 degrees.
Fire officials say, fire officials are moving in heavy machinery as they search for those 2 missing workers. The cause of that fire is still unknown. Also up there in Charlotte, the Charlotte Mecklenburg police are giving a big honor to a helicopter pilot killed in a crash last year. Chip Tyang's wife received a standing ovation as she accepted the Civilian Medal of Honor for her late husband. Chip and WBTV meteorologist Jason Myers died when their helicopter went down along I-77 in South Charlotte in November. Police say Chip took heroic action to avoid the helicopter crashing on the interstate and hurting other people.
Mourning the loss and offering condolences, Chief Jennings called Chip a hero, saying witnesses indicated that Chip made diversionary moves away from the highway to save lives. Because of Chip's heroic acts, there were no further injuries or vehicles on the highway involved in this incident.
The National Transportation Safety Board released its preliminary report in December. It found the helicopter was in the air for about 5 minutes before crashing. New details in the investigation of a deadly shooting rampage in New Mexico from Monday. Police released body camera footage and doorbell videos. The body cam video shows officers rushing towards the gunman before shooting and killing him outside of a church. A warning, some of the images you're about to see may be disturbing.
Police in Farmington, New Mexico released disturbing video of the deadly rampage that left 3 women dead and at least 6 people injured.
I'm at Dustin and Navajo. Be advised, this guy is right in front of the church.
The footage includes body cam video of an officer desperately running toward gunfire as the suspect shot more than 100 rounds with an AR-15 rifle.
I'm being told he's got an automatic weapon. More shots are being fired.
As the officer approached, he called for backup.
Give me another unit.
Officials later identified the gunman as an 18-year-old high school student who was going to graduate the next day. Police say 97-year-old Gwen Schofield and her 73-year-old daughter Melody Ivy were killed when they pulled over near the body of 79-year-old Shirley Voita.
It's our belief, based on what we can see, that they were in the process of pulling over to render aid to the victim that they saw laying in the street.
Just 3 pillars of our community. It's such a tragedy.
A female officer was hit in the pelvis and tried to run for cover as shots flew through the air. From the church parking lot, the shooter appears to fire a volley of gunfire with officers before he was killed.
Subject down!
According to investigators, the suspect legally purchased one of his weapons after his 18th birthday. Michael George, CBS News.
Authorities say the suspect, who wore some type of bulletproof vest, had access to about 10 other weapons inside of his family home. There are just 2 weeks left before the nation defaults on its debts, but with that deadline looming, President Biden is not at the negotiating table right now. He's in Japan for this year's G7 summit. There are signs that the White House and congressional Republicans are inching closer to a deal to raise the debt limit, but some Democrats are urging the president to sidestep Republicans altogether. NBC's Chris Pallone has the latest.
Mr. President, can you guarantee allies that the U.S. won't default?
In Japan, President Biden ignored shouted questions about the biggest crisis facing him back home, the fight over raising the nation's debt limit. But the lead Republican negotiator, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, is now striking his most optimistic tone yet that a deal will get done before a looming deadline just 2 weeks away.
We're not there. We haven't agreed to anything yet, but I see the path that we could come to an agreement.
With the president overseas, the White House has Vice President Kamala Harris making its pitch to the American people.
Congress must act to prevent default.
Economists warn without a deal, a default could cause interest rates to skyrocket on bonds, credit cards, and some mortgages, according to a White House report, and potentially lead to millions of lost jobs. Republicans are pushing for budget cuts and new work requirements on some welfare recipients as conditions to raise the limit, deal breakers for some progressives.
You do not balance the budget on the backs of children and elderly.
Even with negotiations ongoing, Republicans are bashing the president for attending the G7.
What does the president do after saying the sky is falling? He leaves town.
In a letter, several Democrats are urging the president to ignore Republican demands altogether, instead telling him to invoke the 14th Amendment to raise the debt limit, an untested move which would face legal challenges.
We are saying to the president, examine this closely. We have your back.
But at this point, the White House appears reluctant to use that option. Chris Pallone, NBC News.
Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to throw his hat in the ring for the 2024 presidential race official next week. Christian Benavidez looks at DeSantis' political rise and what brought him to this moment.
Before making a name for himself as Florida's outspoken Republican governor, Ron DeSantis represented the state's 6th district for 3 terms in Congress.
This deal cannot stand.
There he was a founding member of the conservative House Freedom Caucus.
He was no different than a half a dozen other conservative Republicans who were in Congress and trying to make a name for themselves.
Make America great again. His run for governor in 2018 came with an endorsement from then President Trump.
Ron DeSantis is extraordinary.
DeSantis won the race by a razor-thin margin. His response to the pandemic boosted his popularity and national profile.
The lockdowns don't work. They destroy people's lives.
He rolled out a more targeted approach that bucked CDC guidance, reopening businesses and schools, and banning lockdowns and vaccine mandates.
It gave him the opportunity to stand out by his stance against the Biden administration.
DeSantis then positioned himself as a leading figure in the culture wars.
The state of Florida is where woke goes to die.
Taking on what he calls woke ideologies, banning instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity at schools, as well as certain race-based teachings. He also began an open feud with part of the state's economic engine, Disney World.
No corporation is above the law.
DeSantis is widely popular in Florida, re-elected in 2022 by a nearly 20-point margin, capturing Latinos and the former Democratic stronghold Miami-Dade County, the first GOP governor to do so in a generation. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, Miami.
DeSantis has consistently placed second to Trump in early 2024 presidential polls, but has maintained a double-digit lead over other Republican challengers. Disney, speaking of which, has scrapped its plans for a new campus in Florida. It would have brought thousands of employees to the state. The campus was going to be on Lake Nona, the greater Orlando area, bringing 2,000 jobs with it. A Disney spokesperson blamed changing business conditions for that decision. It comes at a time when the company and Governor DeSantis are openly arguing. So far, DeSantis has not commented on Disney's change of plans. In the coming weeks, the Supreme Court is set to rule on President Biden's sweeping student loan forgiveness plan. But while the outcome is up in the air, the Education Department quietly extended a temporary policy that makes it easier for borrowers to lower their student loan payments. This means borrowers can continue to self-report their income, which affects how much a monthly payment is. This is to streamline the process of paying back student loans instead of submitting documentation that has to be certified. But the Education Department says this is an easier system, which will have millions of Americans paying off student loans for the first time in 3 years. The Biden administration says the pause on student loan payments will last until 60 days after the Supreme Court's decision, or if there's no decision made by June 30th, payments will restart 60 days after that date, which is August 29th. The Biden administration is taking steps to address the mental health crisis in the U.S. The administration will make $200 million available to strengthen the suicide and crisis lifeline. That number is becoming active in the last year. It's 988. The new initiative is also aiming to provide new resources for mental health services in schools. The Department of Education wants to streamline Medicaid billing permissions for the schools. An 8-year-old girl died in U.S. Customs and Border Protection custody in Texas. This happened the other day. The agency says she experienced a medical emergency. Emergency medical services took the girl to a local hospital where she was pronounced dead. The child's death comes days after a Honduran teenager housed at a Florida shelter died. Immigration officials say surging migration is overwhelming customs and border protection facilities, putting migrants at risk. An incredible story of survival from the jungles of Colombia. 4 children, ages 11 months old to 13 years old, were found alive 17 days after their small plane crashed in dense jungle in southern Colombia. 3 adult bodies were found in the wreckage, but authorities say search teams were able to track the children to a small encampment where they had made a simple shelter. They used canines, helicopters, local volunteers, and even a voice recording of their grandmother to help find those kids. We're learning more about that chase in New York involving Harry and Meghan and the paparazzi 2 days ago. A spokesperson for the couple describes the dangerous 2-hour-long chase pursued by highly aggressive paparazzi. A spokesperson says there were a number of near collisions. At least 3 law enforcement sources say the couple was followed, not chased, with the mayor adding he would find it hard to believe there was a 2-hour high-speed chase. Here's what the taxi driver who picked them up from a police precinct had to say.
Yeah, chaotic. You could say chaotic.
But
yeah. With me, I don't know what happened previous in the day, right? With me, it was chaotic, but not crazy.
And there were some mixed reviews in London regarding that chase. Some say they brought it on themselves. Some say they just want sympathy. Others said they thought it must have been traumatic for the prince, given the way his mother died.
I think it's a matter of perspective. I mean, if you get chased by a car and your mother dies in a car chase, you know what I mean? You can't tell me how I'm supposed to be affected by something.
I think they kind of partly did it potentially to themselves by going outside with their books and everything. So I think it's you cannot be not hounded if you try to achieve visibility like that.
Media reports say the couple switched to the taxi to try to shake off the photographers. A new vaccine to protect newborns from RSV is a step closer to approval. On Thursday, FDA advisors voted in favor of the Pfizer vaccine. It involves a single-dose shot given to pregnant women in the third trimester. The vaccine then triggers the development of antibodies that are passed along to the fetus. RSV infections are the #1 reason for child hospitalizations in the U.S. During testing, Pfizer's vaccine was 82% effective in protecting newborns from severe infections during the first 3 months after birth. A new video from Iowa shows the moment a wanted man sped away from police during a 2021 traffic stop with an officer hanging onto the car's roof. Bo Bowman shows us how it all went down.
Stop the f***ing car! Stop it! Stop the car!
This terrifying moment when a Carroll police officer stepped on top of a moving car actually started as a simple traffic stop.
How's it going, guys?
Until Officer Patrick McCarty told passenger Dennis Geider Jr.
But it sounds like you got a warrant out of
there was a warrant out for his arrest. Then the driver gets out and Geider slides over to the driver's seat and the car starts moving. McCarty pulls his gun.
Stop the car, man! Stop the car!
The car continues to roll forward, officers yelling at him to stop while Geider sits there with his hands in the air.
Stop the car! Stop it! Stop the car!
That's when McCarty steps on top of the car.
Put on the brakes! Stop the car!
Geider continued to drive away as several more squad cars joined the chase as McCarty hung on to the roof.
Stop the car, man!
The chase only lasted for about a minute as Geider turned into a gravel lot and through a ditch where McCarty lost his grip, fell to the ground, and broke his back. Geider pleaded guilty to serious injury by vehicle, but claimed he feared for his life when the gun was pulled, and his attorney asked the judge for leniency during sentencing, claiming McCarty was never trained to step in front of a moving car.
I'm okay, man, go get him!
Scary situation there. Thankfully, it wasn't a lot worse. I mean, broken back is not great, but still alive in one piece. In Montana, the lawsuits have already begun. TikTok users trying to prevent the new law banning the social media app from taking effect. Jake Ward has the details.
Tonight, TikTok users fighting for their territory in Montana. 5 of them filing suit to block the statewide ban signed by Governor Greg Gianforte yesterday. Gianforte calling it the most decisive action of any state to protect Montanans' private data. The bill will take effect in January. And while it threatens to fine TikTok $10,000 a day for each violation of the ban and instructs app stores not to offer TikTok in Montana, enforcement details are otherwise vague.
I like being a voice for my state.
Christian Poole says he earns a modest side income as the unofficial Montana ambassador for more than 400,000 followers.
There being more cows than people here in Montana.
But he says driving out of state to use the app is not realistic.
I'm not entirely sure it'd be like super worth it taking like a possible 2-hour drive just to post.
Meanwhile, a TikTok spokesperson tells NBC News that Montanans can continue using TikTok as we continue working to defend the rights of our users. And in congressional testimony last month, its CEO insisted TikTok is not controlled by China.
The bottom line is this: American data stored on American soil by an American company, overseen by American personnel.
The ACLU, meanwhile, says there's no public evidence of harm that justifies a ban. But the ban does not mention specific national security threats and may be vulnerable, experts say, on First Amendment grounds.
As Congress now weighs the possibility of a federal ban, Montana's ban creates a complicated new landscape for TikTok and the likelihood of more legal battles on the horizon. The ghostly wreckage of the Titanic has never been more clear. The first full 3D scan shows every angle of the ship from the rusted bow to the captain's bridge and wheelhouse. This new mapping technology making essentially a digital twin of the ship.
These scans together allow us to put together an absolute digital replica in every detail, every rivet of the Titanic. And that's extraordinary.
The model was made with more than 700,000 images captured by remote-controlled subs last summer. It's so detailed you can see the serial numbers on the propellers. It's also providing new details about the disaster that claimed more than 1,500 lives. Well, it's a parent's nightmare. Dramatic video showing Michigan sheriff's deputies doing CPR on an infant who had stopped breathing. Deanna Giles reports on the team effort it took to save a young life.
I
Words Matthew Carlson didn't think he would say again to his son.
Your friends are here to see you.
It's incredible. It's a feeling like no other, right? It's a feeling I never thought I was going to have again. It's a feeling Paige never thought she was going to have again.
2-month-old Laker Carlson was given another chance at life. On Saturday, Laker's dad received more than 10 phone calls from the baby's mother.
So I answered it, and she's like, he wasn't breathing, there's water coming out of his nose, there's blood everywhere. So I'm like, what the heck?
Body cam footage from an Ingham County Sheriff's deputy showed Laker not breathing.
He didn't have any signs of life. I mean, he was pale, he was, not moving. He didn't have a pulse.
Sergeant Jonte Slack was one of the first responders on the scene. You can see him performing chest compressions on Laker. As an uncle, this hit close to home for him.
That was one of the big thoughts that ran through my mind. What if that was, one of my family members that was at home dealing with that?
Before responders arrived on the scene, Carlson says Laker's mother also performed CPR. It's what Slack and CPR instructor Rick Williams says made a difference between life and death.
Well, knowing it, of course, you might get over that hesitation to do something and go right into it.
I think most parents in that situation would panic and not know what to do, but Paige immediately started CPR.
Slack says he didn't give up, performing CPR for about 15 minutes.
Once the baby started coming around, there was just thoughts of extreme relief.
And now baby Laker is recovering at Sparrow Hospital's Pediatric Center.
And to see him like that is horrible, but to be able to celebrate his still being here with us is something that I'll never take for granted, and I hope no parent ever has to experience this feeling.
A team effort that helped save a young life.
Thankfully, that all worked out for the best, and hopefully Laker has a speedy recovery. The American Red Cross does provide CPR classes. You can head to redcross.org to sign up at a location closest to you here in our area if you'd like. Well, it's college graduation season and new grads are entering the workforce. Many now need a plan to pay off student debt while also considering their health care and retirement options. CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger has some advice.
If you have a student loan or any other debt, create a list of each loan, include monthly payment amounts and the interest rate. Focus on the highest interest loans and then systematically work your way down to the lower interest ones. For parents, if you can afford to help the kids without jeopardizing your own financial security, that's fine, but no borrowing against the house or the 401k. If your first job offers health care, consider a high deductible plan to keep costs down. If not, remember, parents can keep children on their own health insurance plans until age 26. Finally, while the cash flow might be tight for new grads with a brand new job, if it includes a retirement plan, try to contribute to it at least up to the company's match if one exists. Review the investment options within the plan and opt for lower cost index funds if they're available. If there's no plan through your employer, open a Roth IRA at any of the major low-cost firms. In New York, I'm CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger.
Okay, thanks for those tips there, Jill. Your smartphone can already do some amazing things, and Apple just announced that soon you'll be able to make your voice or your phone speak in your voice. What you do is you type in notes or messages, you can read them out loud in your own voice, and there's good reason some people would like to do that. Our consumer tech reporter Jamie Tucker explains.
The idea behind this accessibility feature called Personal Voice is to give someone the opportunity to have a real conversation with someone in their own voice, even after they've lost the ability to speak. Apple says you'll be able to use this feature in voice and video phone calls as well as in a personal conversation if someone's in the same room.
When it rolls out, you'll be able to find it in the accessibility options within settings. Right now, you can have your phone speak text aloud by just highlighting some text and scrolling through the options until you see speak.
Your phone will read that text out loud using one of Apple's computerized voices.
But soon, when this feature is available, you will hear your voice reading back what you typed.
This technology is similar to one used by the a cappella group to help people who lose their ability to speak clearly.
To maintain their identity, to be able to continue to speak the way they sounded before. And it's very simple to do so. All we need is to capture about 10 minutes, 50 sentences of the person's speech before they lose the capability of speaking. And within 24 hours, we generate a fully digital voice, a text-to-speech voice, which can be used on any tablet, PC, mobile phone.
ALS patients in particular can record their voice in the early stages. When they type a response or question, the people in the room will hear their voice rather than the voice of a computer recording.
Apple says this personal voice feature will be available in a huge update for iPhones and iPads sometime later this year. That's What the Tech. I'm Jamie Tucker.
Pretty cool stuff there. Okay, we are talking some local sports here. We've got baseball to talk about, and then we are going to have to cut the sports a little short because there's some video we're not allowed to show on the digital side of things. So here is Dan.
On your sideline, sports brought to you by the Hawk Law Group.
The Harlem baseball team is heading to state for the first time since 1999, and despite the rainy weather, members of the Harlem community lined up alongside the road on the high school campus to send the Bulldogs off to the state championship in style. This community shares a special bond with their baseball team, and the Bulldogs have certainly given them something to cheer for this year. Harlem's entering the state championship series against Ringgold with a 34-1 record, and they've swept every playoff series they've had so far this postseason. The last time the Bulldogs won state was back in 1986, and this year's team has the chance to end that championship drought. Head coach Jimmy Lewis has been leading the Bulldogs for over 4 decades, and it's easy to see that Harlem wants to bring it home for a man who's impacted countless lives in their community.
Just to understand that so many people are connected through baseball, and also all of our other sports too, but especially baseball and Coach Lewis because he's been here so long. And everybody just loves him because he's an amazing leader, and he's just a great person to be around our kids.
Harlem's state championship series against Ringgold begins on Friday night with a doubleheader in Rome at Advent Health Stadium, the home of the Rome Braves. The first pitch for Game 1 is scheduled for 5 o'clock, and I'll have live coverage from Rome throughout the night. Let's get over to SRP Park for Game 1 of Thomas Jefferson Academy State Championship Series in the GIAA. The rain couldn't stop this baseball game from happening, but the field conditions were definitely a factor along the way. First Preparatory Christian scored 2 runs off of errors, including this wild pitch by the Jaguars, giving the Highlanders a 3-0 lead early on. In the bottom of the second, we have the same score, and the bases are loaded for the Jags. Will McNeely ends up hitting their screamer on the ground to the right side. The first baseman makes the fielder's choice, but the run scores for Thomas Jefferson, cutting the deficit to 2. Moments later, Blake Dollar hits a shot to left, but it dies near the warning track, leaving 2 men stranded in scoring position. The floodgates opened up later on, and the Jaguars fall in Game 1, 11-6. Game 2 is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Augusta Christian was supposed to play their state championship series, deciding Game 3 against Hammond tonight, but due to the rain, the game has been moved to tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Pending field conditions, the final game of this series will now be played at Lexington High School. If these teams are unable to play on Friday, the game will then be moved to Sunday. The PGA Championship.
Oh, I could have played that. It wasn't video. It was a full screen. Well, there's a PGA Championship. Eric Cole's leading the way. He hasn't played his first full round yet because darkness suspended play. They had a frost delay yesterday. Also, with that Thomas Jefferson Game 2, let me double check here. That game's been postponed because of field conditions. So Game 2 is going to be tomorrow at 2 p.m. at Edmund Burke, and then Game 3 will follow that if they need to do that. Okay, you may remember Addison Nide, a local artist who started restoring old Coca-Cola murals around our area last year. Well, a local business owner gave him an opportunity a few months ago to paint an original mural outside of their store downtown. This week, someone started painting over that mural, but Nide says he's happy to see his mural go away. Will Volk explains why.
Emily Bender is thrilled.
This is my first mural that I'm doing outside, so that's pretty exciting.
She's bringing her design to Broad Street, right outside the International Uniform Store. But wait, didn't there used to be another mural here?
I wasn't worthy to hold such a space, so I thought it would be really, really great.
to have just a mural where the community can really get involved.
Addison Naide painted over his mural himself. He wants to give other artists the spotlight.
It's great for me to step away and just let their artists do their thing and really showcase them.
Naide is turning this into a revolving mural. A new artist will paint a new piece every 100 days. For this one, he chose Bender, who opened her art business last year.
It's so nice. It's really special to get to put my name out there and do fulfilling work.
Bender wants her mural to make you feel happy. She based it off Tom Petty's Wildflowers.
I danced to this song with my dad on my wedding day, and his 80th birthday is coming up at the end of the month, so I'm just feeling a little sentimental.
It's a special song she's highlighting during a special opportunity.
It's really great. I mean, my little inner child is so happy I get to be an artist.
In Augusta, we'll vote on your side.
Very cool there, and definitely love the bright colors on that mural and excited to see what that mural becomes downtown over the next few months. Bender's piece will stay up for 100 days after she finishes it, and if you're interested in painting the next mural, you can reach out to Naide. We have his contact information up on our website, WRDW.com. That's where you can also find more information on any of these stories. Also, be sure to download our WRDW streaming app on whatever your favorite streaming device is. That's where we got all of our I-Team investigations, first alert forecast, everything you're going to need, and it is free to download. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Here it is. There we are talking. That's live. WRDW News 12 is the channel, so if you just come here and subscribe, that's another great way to keep up to date with everything that's going on. We also do all of our streams on here too, so if you want to tune in for those. Okay, we've got Morning Mix coming up here in about 5 minutes, so head on over to the TV side of things for that. We'll be back here on the News 12 Now desk a little bit later on this morning. Will Rio's going to join me to talk about his latest I-Team investigation. See you back here then.